All right. Burning. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Douglas A. Welton, and I am the chairman of the Zoning Committee. Welcome to our April 30th, 2024 work session. This meeting is being streamed online via YouTube in accordance with all acceptable or applicable, not acceptable, applicable meeting statutes. Requirements for notice, access, and minutes are being met by electronic means. I'd like to say welcome to all the folks who joined us around the wall today. We've got some folks in visiting. A few orders of business before we get started. For those of you who are on the committee, please keep your mics muted unless you are speaking. State your name before you make a motion or a second, please. The public hearing for the zoning petitions that we are hearing tonight has been held at a previous date in front of Charlotte City Council and the Zoning Committee. This meeting is not a continuation of those hearings, so there will be no public input unless the committee has a specific question, in which case the committee will suspend the session and ask the petitioner directly. We will begin with introductions, and I will go to my left and begin with Commissioner Wilden.
Rebecca Wilden, zoning.
Will Russell, zoning.
Clayton Seeley, zoning.
Rick Winiker, zoning.
Shauna Neely, zoning.
Terry Lansdale, zoning.
We'll now begin with staff, and we'll begin on the other side of my body, on the right, with Emma.
Emma, planning.
Raquel Jones, planning staff.
Holly Kramer, planning.
Joe Mangum, planning staff.
John Kinley, planning staff.
Monica Holmes, deputy director.
Allison Craig, planning director.
Teresa Montalvo, planning or rezoning manager.
Thank you. For those of you keeping score at home, this is Teresa's first meeting being God Almighty of this meeting, and we're excited to have her here. And I think the expression is Dave who? We'll go and talk to the folks that we have online. And who's joining us?
Carpenter, CDOT.
Isaiah Washington, CDOT.
Natalie King, CDOT.
Chris Mano, CDOT.
Travis Miller, CDOT.
Drew Ritter, CDOT.
And we've got Dave down there. Is that you, Dave?
That is, thanks, Dave Benton, planning.
Okay. You know, there's a movie, famous movie, it's a number in the title where they talk about Dave. Anyway, thanks to everybody who's introduced themselves. I will also, before we get one more item of business, one of the fortunate things that's happened this year as I've served as chairman for this committee and the planning commission is I've gotten lots of folks who are calling and they talk to me, and they're students that are in class or studying to do this thing that we do here when they grow up. And tonight we have a special guest. Skylar Pond is with us. And Skylar, raise your hand. So he's a student at App State and environmental and sustainability something or other. That's what I said. But I would ask all the members of the committee if you guys would take a moment and anyone else in the room to talk with Skylar after this meeting is over and just give him a little bit of encouragement or provide, you know, you never can tell when you talk to people what the answer is going to be and where it's going to take you. So I wanted to make sure that we said a hi to Skylar. And now on to our deferrals. Teresa, would you please give us our deferrals for this meeting?
Sure, thank you. We have 6 this evening and I'll just run through those. Petition 2022-121 is requesting a deferral to June 4th. Petition 2022-224 is also requesting a deferral to June 4th. Petition 2023-023 has requested a deferral to July 2nd. Petition 2023-038 is requesting a deferral till September 4th. Petition 2023-039 is requesting a deferral to June 4th. And petition 2023-112 is requesting a deferral to June 4th. And that concludes all the deferrals.
All right, thank you very much. Do I hear a motion on the disposition of the deferred petitions?
Motion, Seeley.
Second, Wilden.
It's been moved by Commissioner Seeley and seconded by Commissioner Wilden. All those in favor of accepting these deferrals, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 7-0. All right, folks, we're into the meat of it. And I'm excited tonight because we have a very short agenda, which is that like saying Macbeth in a theater or something?
Yeah. Say the Q word in the ER.
What Q word? Oh, okay. All right. Well, hey, folks, I'm looking forward to ambitiously taking on the things that we have in front of us tonight. And we will begin with item number 7 on our agenda. And we're visited by Mr. John Kinley. Would you please give us the rundown?
All right. Yeah, as y'all have seen these before, I think maybe in January and then again in March or February. I don't know. I'm losing track, but another innovative request, this time coming from the Thornhill subdivision, which is down South Charlotte between Ballantyne, which is off to the left of the screen there, and Stonecrest, which is over on the right-hand side of the screen. It's a 1987-019C, which would be, that's a county rezoning petition, conditional R12 PUD, Plan Unit Development zoning there. And it has innovative provisions, and that's what we are looking at tonight. So this is the approved site plan on the left-hand side. And the area that this home and parcel is located in is in the area that was noted as parcel 6. And under number 4 in the development standards, parcel 6 has minimum standards for development. And at particular point of interest is the rear yard, which is 25 feet noted on the plan. This is a Thornhill approved subdivision plat showing the lot 44. Which is further identified as 6719 Stenette Drive. And what they are requesting is to reduce the rear yard from 25 feet to 21 feet, which is a 4-foot reduction. And that innovative rear yard, basically that would allow them to take the area that's shown on the plan as in the existing deck and allow them to put a screened-in porch there. And then they are asking for a reduction in the rear yard specifically for unenclosed structures without roofs, such as decks and patios, from 25 feet to 12 feet, which would be a 13-foot reduction. And that would basically allow them to build a new deck off of the screened-in porch, in the future when they are ready to do that part of their improvements to their backyard. Across the street, so down at the bottom edge of the slide is the property highlighted in green. And the areas that are highlighted in yellow or noted in yellow here are other properties within the same neighborhood that have screened-in porches, patios, decks, what have you, all within just a few feet of the property lines. So the following items are being requested for innovative provisions: the reduction of the required rear yard for the principal structure, 25 feet to 21 feet, and then reduction for rear yard specifically. And this has been noted on their survey that would get recorded on for unenclosed structures without roofs from 25 feet to 12 feet. Staff recommends approval of the innovative request for the reduction of the rear yard and the reduction of the rear yard specifically for unenclosed structures without roofs, and there are no outstanding issues. I will take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like? Mr. Winter.
Very briefly, why is this not before the Board of Equalization?
By equalization, I'm assuming you mean the Board of Adjustment, which is, that's what we call it in Charlotte. So the reason is that the Board of Adjustment does not have authority over conditionally zoned properties when the conditional zoning has specific standards on the conditions of the zoning. So because this was a conditional zoning and it had the specific setback standards included for the rear yard, the Board of Adjustment doesn't have authority to change that. And because it was permitted as a plan unit development, basically the old code says that that's an innovative provision, and the innovative provisions can be modified by coming before the zoning committee.
Did everybody get that one? How many times have we seen you this year? Maybe 3?
Well, I think Solomon maybe did the one in January.
Yes, he
So I
did.
think total so far this year, we've had 3 of these.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion for the disposition? And for this, we just need a motion to accept the innovative request. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
So do I hear a motion from the committee?
Motion to accept, Sealy.
Russell.
It's been moved by Seeley and seconded by Russell. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes, and thank you very much. We can go on to item number 8 now, rezoning petition number 2024-043 by the Charlotte Planning, Design, and Development Department. It is a text amendment, and our staff resource on this is Allison Craig. Take it away, Allison.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Emma, are you working the slides? Okay, thank you. Go to the next slide. So before I even talk about the conservation text amendment, I kind of want to take a step back and just talk about the broader picture of what we're looking at right now. And there's 3 different phases of residential development related text amendments that we are working on right now with you all, with the community, the development industry, and our UDO advisory committee. The first phase is what is being, is what you are considering tonight, is the conservation. The purpose of this text amendment, I'll go into more detail, is intended to be used for sites that have environmental constraints. And the reason why we are proposing it now is that we're seeing an extreme volume of what we consider to be low quality sites being submitted. I wanted to add that since the public hearing that you all were there, that we have added an affordable housing incentive to this amendment that allows projects that are 50% or more affordable to move up to zoning districts and use smaller lot sizes in order to get additional density, helping to promote more affordability. The second phase, and I'm going to touch on this briefly because it's related to conservation at the end of the presentation, is a new development tool that I think we're lacking in the UDO. Is really intended to be a tool for modern housing supply. We all, I think in this room, all feel very strongly about the importance of increasing housing supply. And I think that new developments require new tools that I think we're missing, and we'd like to propose that as well. And then the third phase that I'm not going to talk about tonight, but we have mentioned before at City Council and the community and to you all, is the idea that we may want to look at some of the allowable uses in terms of triplexes and stacked quads and create some additional tools. And we're doing this because we've been doing this really an audit over the last year. And it's not even just about the types of uses, it's other things like cottage court, which is required now to go through a rezoning process. And we think that that's a great opportunity to center small homes around a common green area. And we think that should be considered by right. And then adding some additional flexibility for ADUs, among other things. But that won't be the focus of tonight. I just wanted to be clear that that's where we're headed. Next slide. So the timeline for this, so conservation, of course, it is April the 30th. We are here before you tonight for zoning committee recommendation, and we're scheduled for city council decision on May the 20th. We are also working on this compact development form. We are scheduled a meeting with our UDO advisory committee for early May. We have some draft ideas of what the compact development tool would look like that we're circulating amongst some folks just for some preliminary feedback. Looking at filing the week of the 13th, working through engagement, and then in June doing hearing and decision, wanting to ensure that this tool comes before council for decision before they go on their 6-week break. And then the last phase is really focused in later summer and in the fall. Next slide. So again, I've been asked a lot, why now? We have spent the last year reflecting on the comprehensive plan. And of course, there's a goal in the comprehensive plan regarding housing diversity, but there's also other goals in the comprehensive plan that we're looking to achieve, including promoting 10-minute neighborhoods. Goal 7, looking at our integrated and natural and built environments. Goal 9, retaining our identity and charm, and then being fiscally responsible, that I'll talk about a little bit later. We have seen more than around 92% of the subdivisions that are being submitted are using the conservation tool. It was intended to be for environmentally sensitive areas and not intended to be the primary path of development. We've done a number of site testing. We've hired consultants to look at these standards, test them on different site plans that we've received. We've done some market analysis too with another consultant. And frankly, just to be very straightforward with you all, we think the consequences of delayed action are significant. There are about 6,000 units that are currently in development right now. And we think that the development standards that are being submitted right now are not what we intended in the comprehensive plan. It's not what we intended in the UDO. And I don't think it's what was intended for the future resident that would live in those developments. Next slide. So a conservation subdivision is intended to look like the graphic on the right. It's a preservation of features, or maybe there's significant topography, other environmental elements that we would rather you conserve those and reduce your lot sizes so that we are maintaining those environmental features. So as proposed, or as written in the UDO right now, it allows for 50% reduction in lot size in exchange for additional open space. And again, it is not the base lot standards, it's a development option in the UDO. And we propose to modify those standards to improve the quality of development and to truly represent what the intent of a conservation development is. This is a concept that's been in planning for decades. And many cities across the United States use similar types of development features. And again, what is on the screen here is really what they're intended to be. Next slide. So what we're seeing is that the primary access and the primary circulation by cars and trucks, et cetera, in the developments that we're seeing are provided by alleys. And so I want to make sure everyone is very clear that alleys do not meet the requirements for turning over to CDOT. They will forever be the responsibility of the HOA. They do not have any requirements for a full sidewalk system. They don't have requirements for street trees. And that residents that live in this community and owners will forever bear the cost for the life of the development to maintain the roads, the water, and the stormwater infrastructure. And these are not small dollar amounts. This is not a $100 assessment that's going to be able to capture the cost of maintaining these. So they will either not be maintained, or we may have some catastrophic challenges out here. And I will say too, just, as a planning professional and planning staff, we've taken oath as planners to act in the public interest. And I don't think that this is in the public interest. We see a lack of commitment to quality usable open space. We've got lots facing onto stormwater facilities, slivers of open space, and open space that isn't accessible to residents. And then finally, we're missing transitions between development. So there's no landscape buffer or perimeter buffer between existing neighborhoods and the new neighborhoods. Next slide. Just a couple pictures to reiterate this. So on the top left, you've got units that are facing a small open space and a sidewalk. The bottom left, you see a very narrow alley without sidewalks or street trees. And again, this is in these development options is what we're seeing as the primary form of circulation. So all of your emergency vehicles, your trash service, your Amazon Prime trucks are all using these roads as their primary form of circulation. The bottom right, there is open space in the far right corner, but you've got to climb a fence and a retaining wall to get to it. And then the top right, you'll see many driveway cuts, not really leaving a lot of room for our street trees. Next slide. So right now, we have over 2,500 units that have been submitted under these standards. They are vested. They will be able to move forward using these standards. And most of these, as you'll see, are not near centers, and there's a large number that are in the ETJ. So if you look at the map on the right, and MIT, that represents areas that are within a quarter mile of a neighborhood activity center or a half a mile community or regional activity center. And you can see most of the developments are not falling in those areas and therefore really not moving forward our first goal in the comprehensive plan of a 10-minute neighborhood. There are more than 3,500 units that are in sketch plan review. These are not vested, but they could, as soon as they turn in construction plans and submit a fee, then they are held under the current standards. And finally, 94% of the units are in the ARC and only 6% in the wedge. Next slide. So the proposed changes by planning staff to increase the quality and the quantity of open space requirements would require an additional 15% of green area / tree save and common open space for 40% total. There are requirements for open space to not be on individual lots. We've provided some improved standards and increased standards for what constitutes open space and minimum dimensions. We are requiring limited alley access with the majority of the project on public streets, requiring lots to front public streets, green areas, or open space, and adding an additional perimeter buffer. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's also an addition in Article 4.5, the voluntary mixed income bonus. When 50% affordable, you could go up 2 lot districts and lot standards. So as an example, N1A could use N1C lot standards, which means your lot sizes are smaller, which allows you to get more density for affordable projects.
That's across all development, not just conservation.
Well, yeah, but yeah, that's, they only do that.
Yeah.
Right here. Next slide. So I wanted to talk about density numbers because there's been questions about, well, with these proposed conservation standards, you're reducing the total lot yield, and that is correct. However, it's still more than what was allowed before the UDO, even with clustering. So pre-UDO, a site like this would probably yield about 115 units. With the clustering provisions, pre-UDO, you could probably get to 130. The current conservation standards, and if you've seen this before, I had 220 there before, it's actually 203. So current conservation, the site would yield 203. And with what we've proposed with some of the site testing, you would get 170. So still significantly more than what was allowed before the UDO. Next slide. So we recognize the reason why the conservation standards have been used so frequently is that we need an additional tool. So we are proposing that we add the compact development option for increasing housing supply. This would be a by right option, allowing smaller lot sizes similar to cluster. And we propose that it is allowed everywhere except for protected and critical watersheds and within the airport noise overlay. And so what this looks like, there's a number of different elements to it, but just kind of wanted you to look at some of the details. This would allow you to move up 2 zoning districts with an additional 5% open space. This is a little bit different than the affordable housing. So affordable housing can jump up 2 districts and they just can go there because they're by nature affordable. We are similar to the cluster provisions, asking for a little bit additional open space. So you can see as an example, a lot size in N1A currently is required to be 10,000 square feet and be 70 feet in width. And the proposed compact standards would allow you to reduce that lot size to 5,000 square feet with a 50-foot lot width. The other thing that we are talking about is increasing the allowed uses to include townhomes when you're adjacent to centers and transportation corridors. And that's something that we're working on as part of phase 2 and phase 3. Next slide. So why now with compact? As I said before, modern subdivisions and modern constructions need smaller lot sizes, and the standards that are based in the UDO protect the lotting patterns in existing neighborhoods. And we recognize that the market is aligned for wanting more attached product, wanting more townhomes. Apartments are really not viable right now. And so wanting to align our regulations to match with where market considerations are to promote housing. Next slide. And so then I wanted to pause for a second and just kind of make sure everyone understands the different development options in neighborhood 1 as proposed. And so phase 1 is conservation. The purpose for using conservation standards is for sites with environmental constraints, watershed protection areas, steep topography, special environmental features. We would estimate, and this is looking at what we've seen in the past, talking to other cities and what they've seen, this is not intended to be the primary development pathway. So maybe 5 to 15% of the developments would use this particular provision. So you can see the development pattern is clustering while allowing for large open space. And what so we've got some yields down here just to kind of talk through this, but what we are expecting and what we've tested is that with conservation, the yields that you would get would be fairly similar to what you would get with the pre-UDO cluster standards or with UDO-based development plus 5 to 20%, really depending on the site. I mean, each site is going to be unique. The environmental features are going to be unique. So in some cases, it would yield more. Some cases, probably not a lot more. The base standards in the UDO that are existing, these are really intended for infill sites less than 2 acres, neighborhood extensions. Probably 20 to 30% of the sites would use just our base standards in the UDO. These are traditional lotting patterns that you see throughout many existing neighborhoods. And again, the yields expected here are similar to, because they're very similar to pre-UDO, but now you've got an allowance for additional use types with duplexes and triplexes. The third option for development would be compact, is what we're working on. We're expecting that to be used for sites that are over 2 acres, minimal environmental constraints, larger development parcels, and probably 60 to 75% of the development would use this type of development option. So again, these are intended for attached product, for higher density, and we're anticipating that the yields would be greater than pre-UDO cluster and probably 30 to 50% higher yields than what the base development standards would be. This is testing in progress, but that's based on some initial work that we've done with our consultants. Next slide. So we find this petition to be consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan based on information from the staff analysis and the public hearing. It supports goal number 2, neighborhood diversity and inclusion, goal 3, housing access for all, goal 7, integrated natural and built environment, and others. We find this petition to be reasonable in the public interest, and because the text amendment will increase the quality and quantity of required open space and design standards for required open space. The standards will ensure the common open space is accessible and usable by residents. It adds requirements that lots front on public streets, open spaces, or green areas to ensure lots have better access and relationship with frontage. Finally, the amendment adds a perimeter landscape yard for the site to provide a better transition between the conservation, residential development, and adjacent parcels. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Allison. Usually I ask committee if they would like to ask something first, but I'm going to take chairman privilege tonight and be the first person to speak. Got some notes. I didn't make a spreadsheet, but I know. Anyway, thank you very much to staff for the work that's gone into this. There are many things in this discussion that are to be liked. I do believe that is the case. Unfortunately, my initial reaction to this proposal was not a positive one, and it was on a number of dimensions that I find issue with the proposal. First of them being the economics of it all, and the challenge with some of this stuff is that there haven't been some numbers that I would like to have had. If we are requiring more green space from developers, I believe that a couple of things are going to happen in that situation that are probably not going to be the intended consequence. First of all, people in this room who petition us often say that development is a math problem. And when we are seeing in your proposal where you have a 15% haircut in terms of the yield of the number of units, what I believe is that for a number of developers, that is going to be a breaking point. And those developers will simply choose not to develop their product. And in Mecklenburg County, and they will walk away from us and we will lose those units and not be able to get those back. In other cases, I believe that developers will have deep enough pockets to acquire additional land. They will acquire this additional land and they will build the number of units that they need mathematically to make it work. But those units will cost more. And that in and of itself down the line will affect housing affordability, not affordable housing, but housing affordability. And if they have to, they will either raise the cost of the units that they create, or they will pass through the cost of additional land acquisition. And I am a diehard proponent of us creating as much housing stock as we can possibly create. And by giving this haircut, which again, we got to compare this to the rules that are on the ground. And the rules that are on the ground right now, we're giving people a haircut. If we want to go back and say, well, before we had the rules on the ground, we had this, why stop at 2022? We could go back to 1970 and say, well, compare it to that. We've got to compare to the rules that are on the ground right now. And I believe that the haircut is going to cost us in terms of the ability to produce yield. I have taken a look at a lot of population data lately, and I will just use population as a proxy for demand. But the word insane comes to mind when I think about this, and I look at what has happened in Northeast York County, what has happened in Eastern Gaston County, what is happening in Southwestern Cabarrus County, what is happening in that little sliver of Lancaster County that touches us. Those populations have increased significantly. And so the developers in those particular areas who may not really care about the state line or the county line, but they can see that as we get closer to the edge of Mecklenburg County, large lots are available, will choose to come to this particular area and make their products there. So from an economics point of view, I see that there are issues. We have gotten the staff's explanation on multiple occasions. I know that just about everybody had a small meeting with planning staff yesterday. We received presentations at Planning Commission meeting, which would have been some number of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right? We have seen city council discussions of this issue. We've seen Transportation Development Committee's discussion of this issue. And at this point, we are being given part one of what we believe is a three-part party. That doesn't have a lot of truck with me, because what you're basically saying is, trust us, this next part will work out. And trust us, the third part will work out. But hey, I ain't got nothing in my hands, as my cousin would say. The way I look at this is, imagine the Allies on June 6th decide to invade Normandy, and they say, hey, you guys with the rifles, go ahead first. A couple of days later, we're going to send in the guys with the boats. And we got the guys with the airplanes, but we're going to figure out when to send them in at some time in the future. I need a holistic strategy in front of me that is unified and has a purpose to be accomplished. And doing that piecemeal is not, that doesn't work for me. And, again, these are my opinions. So there will be more discussion because you guys are verbose sometimes, aren't you? Also, one thing, last year we had a text amendment that the committee voted 7-0 to recommend. I sat in horror as I watched council eat that thing apart and shoot it down. I never thought they would do that. If one of these three portions of this particular set of text amendments does not go through, what happens at that point? Again, these are ifs that derail what I would believe would be a prudent path forward. And that being the case, I have one final issue. There's a notion that we have low quality housing and that we not me, the government should somehow protect people from low quality housing. I am the guy that says caveat emptor. If there's low quality housing and you buy it, then you bought it. These are contracts between adults and they can figure that out all by themselves. If in the end, people decide that, hey, my stormwater sucks, or, I'm too close to this house, or those types of things, I don't have enough green space, they can make different decisions going forward. I am evil Douglas, but I believe that the government has one purpose in life, and that is to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. And that, I believe, is an overreach for us to say, oh, we're gonna give better quality housing. I just don't think it's possible. So those are my comments. Do I have any comments or questions from the rest of the committee?
If I may respond. First, I'm respectfully, I agree that development is a math problem. And I think Charlotte took a huge step forward by talking about introducing the allowance of missing middle housing. I do, a resident that moves into their home, they could probably see that there isn't a tree or that there isn't a sidewalk there, and they make those decisions. But the decision that ultimately has $1 million plus dollar figure on it that they don't really understand, I don't think is in the public interest. And I think that, I understand the idea of wanting to package a full spectrum of things that are related together, but a lack of action has consequences. And the consequences of those actions are that hundreds, if not thousands, more units will be constructed with a situation that this will ultimately fall on the resident and the property owner. And so, in an ideal world, yes, it would be great to put all these things together, but there is a consequence in making that decision, which is why planning staff recommends bringing the conservation forward and moving quickly on compact, because I think that the outcome is detrimental to the person that ultimately is responsible for bearing those costs. So,
thank you very much. But my answer to that is, if you ever saw the movie Trading Places, the two old guys bet $1. So I'm willing to take $1 bet on this. I believe that in 3 years, all of those units that are quote unquote low quality will be sold to someone, and someone will be living in that low quality unit, and they will not care about this discussion one bit. Comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I just got a couple of quick questions and I'll get to the meat of my discussion. Who was the consultant that worked on the UDO?
on the regulations,
Yes.
Camiros.
And then who was the consultant who worked on the text amendment that has been put in front of us?
That the consultant that worked on the site testing was Bolton Ming, yeah.
Okay, so a different consultant. Okay.
Well, they're different, have different specialties. One is a site designer that lays out site plans, and the other one is one that writes codes.
Okay. And then speaking to the chair's discussion about doing math, have we done the math on the impact of this text amendment?
So we have done the math of what the cost per unit would over, if you can,
Yeah.
this number.
Sure. So we've done the math on HOA costs per extended maintenance, which is about $20,000 to $30,000 per unit over a 10-year period, using rough estimates of street maintenance, water, sewer, and solid waste services, because solid waste will not serve units that are in these developments, nor will Charlotte Water, nor will CDOT. So that's about a cost of $20,000 to $30,000 per unit over time. If we're talking simple yield on math, I think you can't think of a conservation as an equal trade for today versus tomorrow. Again, you have to look at the full spectrum of conservation with new conservation at this end of the spectrum and compact at this end. And so all the tests we've done thus far, including the ones we did with the top 12 leading site designers in Charlotte, were yielding with compact as the new tool, probably even more than they're getting out of conservation today. So I think when you're talking about the economic side of it, you have to look at it as that a one-to-one versus the, and we're doing another charrette this week on the same site you saw, where we're testing the new standards that were all sent to you today in the draft ordinance language. So from that economic side, and I think that's what you're getting at, is simply a yield equation. That's what's ongoing currently with, so we're seeing not really a loss, again, unless you're in a critical watershed, because you're not using the same toolbox tomorrow, that you're not going to use the same toolbox, basically.
So I guess I'm at a loss for understanding that if you're going to increase the amount of percentage of open space and increase the amount of space dedicated to right of way, that by definition leaves you less land to develop.
But I think you're not looking at the right equation. So the equation you're looking at is if all 92% of those were to take the new proposed standards and use all the new standards. That's not what the equation is. What you're saying is that 92%, 75% of them are going to choose to use compact because it is the development tool of choice versus this new conservation tool. So then in that case, you're actually apples to apples with the open space. Because in our everything we've tested and everything we're proposing has that same amount of open space.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree because you've got a graphic up there that tells me that 90 to 92% of the rezonings that are coming in are
They're
not
rezonings, to be clear, not rezoning.
Okay, I'm just going off of what you wrote, but 92% of whatever you're getting doesn't apply base standards, but they're using conservation, but yet we're tweaking conservation. Why not tweak the part that 92% of people are walking away from?
We are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, we are.
we are scheduling that for vote in June.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So the reason why they're choosing conservation is because of the ability to use all private alleys as a baseline,
And why are they choosing private alleys to get more yield?
because they're passing that dollar on to the homeowner versus having to spend it up front.
But they have to
There's
get
a-
the yield in order for it to work, because based on what you've got in your conservation district, you're gonna have 15% tree save area, 10% common space area, and then additional 5% for right of way. So that's 30% of a 5 acre lot. And when I do the math on that, that leaves me with roughly 3.5 acres. And so if I take an N1A, which is equivalent to a R3, I'm gonna get 10 units on a 5 acre lot. And then if I use this conservation text amendment, I got 30% tree save, 10% common space, 9% for your 25 foot buffer, and additional 4% for right of way. That's 53%. And 53, that leaves me with 47% of developable space on a 5 acre lot, which is about a little under 2.5 acres. That's 7 units.
Okay.
So how are we getting more when we're taking away more land that can be developed? Like, I don't understand that.
I would just beg to disagree that our consultants and the designers that we have had testing are not getting yields that look like that.
Okay, can we have a copy of those consultant studies so that we can see that for ourselves? Because thus far, we haven't gotten it.
Sure. I mean, one of them was just shown and we can send additional ones out. We have several sites that have been tested, and again, we're ongoing testing with Compact.
Okay, and then my other question is, we keep talking about affordable housing and how this is gonna help affordable housing and that we're gonna have affordable housing. But then I look at the text amendment, if I look at section 4.5, well, let me just do it this way. If I go to page 416 and I go to voluntary mixed income residential development, the text amendment says the conservation residential development provision shall not be paired with conservation residential development incentives of 4.5.8. But then I look on your slide and I see that you are allowed to do that. So which one is it?
So I would be, okay. We are changing voluntary mixed income housing in the text amendment. If you check your text amendment, you'll see that that applies to all zoning. So that's what I was chiming in when Allison was presenting it, is that we should be clear that those two are not nested.
This says shall not, and I printed this off yesterday. So is this incorrect?
No, I think so the voluntary, you would never choose to use them in pair together because the voluntary affordable housing gives you the reduction in lot sizes without additional open
Can we
space.
go
So
back
if
up
you're
the
an
slide so we can
affordable,
see that?
if you're an affordable housing project, then you would by default choose that option because you don't, if you're a market rate developer, so let's talk through this. If you're a market rate developer, to get the 50% reduction, you're giving more open space in conservation and in compact. They're different numbers, right? And they have some different design standards. So that's the exchange. If you're affordable, our proposed text amendment, which is in the current draft, is you just get that 50% reduction without an exchange for open space. So even in any base district, you're getting that 50% lot reduction without any additional standards.
I mean, you say
What
you're,
page is that on?
I don't have the text amendment sitting in front of me, but
Use mine.
Do you know which sec?
it's
it's
Article
4.5, yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
so that's, I mean, just by nature of having 50% affordable housing, you get to go to the lot standards,
Of
two
two
districts, above or however you want. So A goes to C, B goes to D, etc. And there's nothing else you do. That's it.
Yeah, so you wouldn't, again, back to, you would not use conservation development because you're getting the reduction
Because you're
without,
affordable.
because you're affordable. So you're just going to stick to baseline standards.
Okay, and my last question, and then I'll-
We have a handout of changes if you want, sorry, Lars. We have a handout of changes if you want to see
yeah,
that.
that would have been helpful to get before the meeting.
Okay, it's posted, is it posted online? It's posted online also, so we can make sure you have the link.
Okay.
So per comments we received, we are accelerating the voluntary mixed income piece of it. But they are not a partnership, that they're not married together and that they're used together per se.
Okay, and then the last question I have, there's a provision in here, I believe it's section 4.5.A.2.B.G.
Jesus. Sorry.
I do a lot of reading.
No.
This says,
Wait a minute, Will. And this is the thing I say about Commissioner Russell. He rides around with the UDO in the back of his car. So he can get away with that. Just saying.
I can't get away with that. It says at least one common open space shall be accessible from all residential lots in the conservation residential development within 1,000-foot radius of the common open space area. This radius is measured in a straight line from the lot without regard for street, sidewalk, or trail connections to the nearest point of the open space. Multiple common open space areas may be needed to meet this requirement. So if I do the math using an R3 lot, which is 70 by 150 roughly, if I do 1,000 feet on the 70-foot axis, I can only get 6 lots away from my open space. And if I do it on the 150-foot axis, I can only get 7 lots away before that has to change, or I have to build an additional open space. What are the city is using that provision?
I'll ask Laura if she has comments around that, because we worked closely with looking at other ordinances and how they regulate.
Yes, and we'll pull that from another community. I'm not sure of the community. I can believe it was Rob,
Yeah. So,
actually. And remember, you're reducing your lot sizes.
Yeah, so you're not
getting a lot
using-
more Lots closer together.
yeah. So
Said Raleigh.
Raleigh that's in their conservation, and I'll just repeat what Laura was, do you want to?
Yeah, Raleigh is where we pulled the standard from, I believe. And also remember, you're reducing your lot sizes significantly from the 70 by 150. So you're going to get a lot more units and you're doing probably at least duplexes on your lots. So we do think that that's a pretty reasonable approach to getting that. And your open spaces can be smaller. They can be 50 by 50.
Minimum.
And that's the minimum size. So there are opportunities to have multiple open spaces, which we frequently find in these communities.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any other,
Everybody's.
who wants to go first? Steel gauge deathmatch? Okay, Wilden wins. You guys, Lanzell and then Neely.
I don't know what order I'm gonna go. So something that would. Not to hear it. Something that Will just said sparked something that I brought up on a call with y'all that I don't think I talked to everyone on zoning about, which is, under the text amendment, the open space can be conveyed to a homeowners association, meaning that the space would not be true public open space. And then HOAs, which I think most of the people on the committee know that I'm not a huge fan of because of the reason why they were initially put together, could conceivably put onerous restrictions and use on the visitation of space. And so, hold on, I took a lot of notes. And then conveying open space to HOAs creates an additional equity issue on top of the premise of why they were put together, making that land then exclusive to HOA members. And then based on what Will just pointed out, regardless of street, whatever, if you don't live in the HOA, then you wouldn't have a gated HOA, then you wouldn't have access to the open space. According to the text amendment. And then the other thing that I brought up during when this was initially put before us is love tree save. Absolutely love it. I'm a huge environmentalist. But I also realized that sprawl bad, infill good. Super fun. And that I think that in tree ordinance update, to me would be preferred. And I know that it's kind of a bunch of different things in this text amendment, but I think an update to the tree ordinance, which is what council, I feel talks about every single meeting that I listen to, but yet they haven't taken action on it in 2 years, but they keep complaining about it. They need to update that. And so that then we can take that out of this equation. Even though I do love the 15% tree save included in this, I still think that council should update the tree ordinance instead of complaining about it.
I'll start with the tree piece and then I may pull one of you for the HOA part, but so right now, we've got the results from the tree canopy analysis. We are in the process of engaging a consultant to do tree canopy action plan 2.0. And that will also be looking at our tree canopy policies. Are we keeping 50 by 50? I hope we are, based on particularly the new tree canopy analysis that we got. However, that also is, there's a challenge between trees and housing sometimes. So we want to get through that effort first, the tree canopy action plan, before making significant changes from what we've already talked about with the community and council. And so I would expect that to be over the next year. We will have staff and the consultants come before the commission and talk through that as we make any recommendations. But that's, I would say, this year and next, as part of a broader conversation about trees.
Okay.
And then the HOA piece, I think, Laura, you talked about that yesterday, and I may lean on you a little bit, but I think there's just, someone has to be responsible. for the open space, and that's typically the body that you turn that over to. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that, Laura.
Yet someone has, as Allison said, someone has to be responsible for that common open space. It does not lie with individual property owners. So it's really a need to have a responsible body. And HOAs are, I believe, what has been provided in North Carolina for these types of developments. So again, you could, if Park and Rec wants that open space and can accept it, and it works for them, it could also go to Park and Rec, or the Tree Safe can go to a conservation agency. But short of that, I'm not sure what the other tool, the alternative to a homeowners association would be. I think that's the challenge is, so who else does it go to?
Laura, can I ask a really silly follow-up on that? Could the open space not be given to the homeowners?
That's essentially a homeowners association.
No. Each individual homeowner. No.
No, because it's a grouping of the homeowners, and that's the homeowners association. It can't be given
Okay,
to,
all
like,
right.
this person has these 2 square feet. And this
I live in a world beyond HOAs, so just excuse me if
I
that.
do too, but I've
Yeah.
lived in one, and we had a common open space, and there was a homeowners association that maintained that, was responsible and held the liability insurance.
Okay.
And I think the county in general is very excited about any opportunity to convey land, dedicate to parks. And so we continue to have these conversations with them about how we can partner better on those. So those are ongoing, but I think there is, opportunity down the road to increase that. So.
Becca, were you done?
Yes.
Your voice is very beautiful. I hope everyone heard it. Commissioner Lansdale and then Commissioner Neely.
I think Neely.
Oh, well,
We do without Sean.
Yes.
oh, okay. That's Steel Cage Death Match.
All right, yep.
Go for it.
So thank you, guys. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Monica, for the presentation. Thank you for the time that you've spent with us. At the risk of being shot, I like your idea. I like what you're saying. As I understand, I appreciate, the solutions that it brings to a current problem. In this moment, though, my question becomes, though, can we talk a little bit more about the phases, the first phase? I mean, how was that decided? And is there another opportunity to change the phases? How and why do you think that's the best method for this proposition?
I mean, the reason for the phasing for us is, again, like, there are hundreds of units. We got the latest count and it was, 6,000 at this point. And so that's what I was saying, like, every month that we wait to do these, that's just, there are more units than will be in these conditions that we don't think are right. I feel really comfortable about the compact phase 2. I think that we've spent a lot of time with the development community. We had the charrette, we had, the mayor pro tem, Councilmember Graham, and Councilwoman Molina there. I think the political support will be there for that. And so I feel really good about getting that through in June. And I think council will also recognize that they're going on break. And so they will not meet all of July and won't meet again until the zoning meeting in August. And so I think there's a lot of interest to move that forward. And so, and then the third phase of that, I think that, frankly, triplexes, quadruplexes have been controversial for years now. I don't think that that's something that we're going to solve in 6 weeks. And so I think we need more time to decide what changes, if any, that we need to make there with those uses. So I think we've really spent a lot of time thinking through. We've talked to the community, we've talked to council, we've been to committee, we've been to you all. I will say that there's been a lot of brain power and thought and research into trying to make the best decision. Because as I said earlier, yes, of course, it would be great to look at all these things all together, but delaying things until September have consequences that we don't feel, in our professional opinion, that we're comfortable with. And so, ultimately, these decisions for votes and recommendations come before appointed and elected bodies for final decision. But our job here as staff and as planners is to act in the best interest, do our research, and provide what we think is the best solution for you all. Thank you.
Commissioner Lansdowne.
I just want to say thank you for the work. Some things that really have top of mind, I've got to kind of clear the air for me, if you don't mind. I've stood alone here in many respects for thousands of units in my tenure on the zoning committee, in which I was alone opposition because of transportation issues. Transportation issues associated with private drives, transportation associated with alleys, transportation issues associated with the aggressive nature of closing down streets and access points for the sake and only the sake of unit production and profit in the world out there. I've stood alone with planning staff, and I'm going to make it about me, but it's not really about me. It's about the policy in place. Just as my colleague rides around with the UDO ordinance, you guys know that the Charlotte Streets Manual is tattooed in my upper left arm at this point. So, and around the back, and
You all think he's kidding.
so for my time on this board, on this committee, I've been challenged to answer questions about that design manual, how it affects our ability to impact zoning, decisions that we make. And it's always been a tennis match about who's the last word on it. Well, it's not in the streets design guideline manual. It's not part of our zoning. We can't really do anything about that. You can vote no if you want to, you can vote yes if you want to, kind of deal. And I feel sorry for that. I want to apologize to the community. I want to apologize to CDOT and the staff that we didn't prioritize this 18 months ago. Because we've made tens of thousands of mistakes over the past 18 months. And now we're going to try to make a correction in the next 20 days and losing or having an impact over a finite number of units potentially. With that said, I want to thank you for the moment to kind of set the stage and get me to where I need to be to make some specific comments about this. I do appreciate the phasing. You know, if it was just phase one, I don't see a lot of issues with that. It's my language, so to speak. Of course, not me personally. It's that transportation access, ingress and egress, the design of our facilities to affordable housing to all types of units, the 15-minute neighborhood, the quality of life, the safe and safe neighborhoods, all those pieces in the UDO are critical. And there's some incredibly great language associated with the phase one. It's just already late to the game. We're coming to the coach at the ninth inning with 2 outs saying, put me in, but I'm now the third or fourth batter back. And it's just can't be done that quickly in my mind. I'm a great supporter of that phase one. Some things that struck me that I'll kind of go off script and I'll pull back some of my notes. But some of the things that I would like to be more comfortable with are what staff has said, just not in 1942 for D-Day, but just in the last 20 minutes. And one was associated with Parks and Rec. You know, if Parks and Rec wants it, was the quote earlier, just a few moments ago, for green space, they should be able to comment on that. Well, I want to know their support now. I need to be able to have that piece in my hand. It was also said just a few moments ago that the county, you think, is excited about that. I don't want to think the county is excited about that because in my conversations this week, ain't nothing about this, what's going on. However, when we talk about the conservation phase, especially on the transportation piece about the alleys, they are deep into that. That is an important part of that discussion. And as a county representative, I want to know that on this body that serves the city, represents the county, that I have a true representation in place for my county to be represented on the dais with the final vote for the decision at the dais. It's upsetting to me sometimes on a personal basis to see the dais for city council defer to district reps for specific zoning issues, but never reference the conversation they may have had with any county facility, parks or rec, or anyone on the county side. So that's kind of a process piece. I would love to be able to have, again, specifically to reiterate, some messaging from the county about this. And for me, specifically in the conservation phase one, I think it's just too big of an elephant for the county to jump on, get a grip on, and frankly, for anybody at the dais to get a grip on the impact in the next 21 days. And again, I just am deeply concerned about the speed of the process, and I appreciate the staff's ability to talk about the intensity of the decision that needs to be made. You know, it's something I've been speaking of kindly and pointedly over the past tenure of my service about transportation issues and why I say no to petition rezonings because of transportation issues. The need for staff to identify those outstanding transportation issues. We're doing it. You're doing a great job with that. I'm in 100% at this point, emotionally and professionally in support of many aspects of phase one. Like my other colleague said, I want to see more testing before I can make a decision. And I want to make sure that when we do, like, let's just say in a hypothetical, if we move to approve phase one tonight to satisfy at least that series of needs, I'm scared to death because I know that the Streets Design Guide Manual is not going to change in that same time frame, that there's still going to be outstanding neglectful designs around alleys and access, that we're still going to have not a clear definition of how we can design and build private alleys to ensure long-term access, to ensure, what was it, the reference you also gave, to reduce the street maintenance amount of 20 to 30,000 per unit estimation of that's going to cost. And that's something that we have made thousands of mistakes on already. And I think we've got to get it right to protect this. If we're going to sacrifice these last 6,000 units, it's got to be right. And we got to make sure that if we need to do a haircut, that we're not shaving to the scalp immediately. We've got to make sure that those first cuts are right. If we do make the first cuts right, that haircut is going to be beautiful for a long time to come. And that's what I'm asking for, is a little bit more clarification on county representation. So we're not guessing. More clarification on what changes in the Streets Design Guideline Manual are required to ensure that this is a stick and not a fluid moving forward. We have to make those marry together better. It's going to make our job easier. And hopefully, my developers in the audience and in the room and online, you will begin to improve your designs in your original submittal so that we don't have to have these scrambles at the last minute to make corrections. And that's the ultimate goal for me, is to make this a better transportation city, to allow people to economically thrive and survive in whatever unit they choose to afford or can afford in this city, because we all have to leave that front door at some point in time. Thank you again to staff. I tried to not to be too pointed, but this has been a passion. I'm not saying I'm against this at this point, but I can't support all of it as it sits. But there are some good things in phase one that really are adaptive to the needs that I've been speaking of over the past 18 months. And I'll let you.
Yeah, if I could respond. So from the Parks and Rec perspective, we worked with them long through the UDO. And so the transference of it's going to be an individual site specific thing. I mean, it's going to be whatever that environmental feature is or where it is on the site. And so I think they are fully embracing any opportunity that we can work together on that. It's just, it will be like each site that comes in, like, is this a possibility? So I think that we have worked really closely on that. We have had some conversations with county commissioners just on the UDO and these standards in general. And from the commissioner or two that I've talked to, they're very supportive of this. So there have been those conversations. I don't know if you want to add anything about Parks and Rec, because we talked about that a lot in the UDO.
Yeah, not to necessarily reiterate what Allison said, but that has always been the approach is they don't want every piece of open space. It needs to work for them. But they did look at this text amendment, Park and Rec did. We actually got a comment from them about a concern that indicated you couldn't develop the open spaces. And they said, if we end up with any of these, we need to be able to develop it as a park. And so that could be considered development. We made that change in the ordinance. I don't know if we've been able to get you guys the latest and greatest copy, but that should be on the list to address their issue. So we think we're in a good place with them. We've worked with Katie Lloyd and others at Park and Rec.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna kind of pull that thread just a little bit. I'm trying to live on your words here at the dais because that's really what we're about right now. But when you said they had a comment on the text amendment, that was the original one that you're referring to, not this one. Is that correct?
That was the draft that went to hearing. We've made these changes since then. One of these changes was to address their issue, and they no longer have any issues.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Email each. Hopefully it's in the email.
Okay, is that any different than the one online that I pulled up over here? Okay, all right. Terry, were you about done? I got a couple of commissioners. You guys want to say anything, or you?
I think everything's been said.
Commissioner Winokur?
I wanted to float this idea among the commissioners. I know that this is an anathema to staff because they very much feel that this is as close to an emergency, a zoning emergency as we can get to, not really zoning, but, you know, a statutory emergency. And, but given the interest in additional clarification on a lot of important points, is it worth considering whether or not we want to delay a decision on this, given that compact phase 2 is coming, you know, at the same time, you know, within a similar timeframe.
Has everybody discussed as much as they want to discuss? I will call for a disposition on this if everybody's in a happy camper place, going once, twice. We have three options. You guys know we always have the same three options: approve, deny, and defer. Do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number 8 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2022-043?
Commissioner Russell, just a little bit more purposes by saying, I'm just going to be honest, I'm a no on this. I think the process has been rushed. I don't necessarily think that it has been very transparent. And I think that we've rushed through a lot of things and blown through a lot of stop signs with both the UAC, which is the advisory committee, with the planning commission, and with council. And I have a lot of heartburn about what's written and about how that has gone. But to that end, I will offer an olive branch and ask for deferral until the next zoning committee meeting a month from now.
Second, Seeley.
It's been moved by Commissioner Russell and seconded by Commissioner Seeley. All those in favor of a deferral, please say aye. Aye. Can I get hands so I can see? That is a 7-0 vote for it. There are no nays. Nobody had an extra hand, do they? That is a 7-0 vote for us to defer this petition to, do we have to say a specific date? Teresa, do you know?
Just that you.
Yeah, we will defer this until our June.
Just put it on my calendar, hold on.
Yeah, June
4th.
4th?
Yes.
June 4th meeting.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. All right, we're on to, by the way, let me just say this. I want staff to know that we greatly appreciate the effort that has gone into this. There have been a lot of hours of contact with commissioners outside of normal time. I also want to say thank you to the committee members because y'all been doing some thinking while you weren't in this room. And I always say, do your work before you get here. It helps us make these go a little bit better. And I appreciate all of you for doing some good thinking. Let's go on to number 9 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2022-105 by Moore's Chapel Retail LLC. Joe, join the party.
Thank you. Petition 2022-105 is just shy of 4 acres located at the intersection of Rhine Road and Moore's Chapel Road. Current zoning is N1A. Proposed zoning is B1CD. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood center place type. Proposal would allow up to 10,000 square feet of uses permitted in the B1 zoning district. Commits to screening the drive-through component from adjacent rights of way with plantings or a 4-foot screening wall. Limits freestanding lighting to 25 feet in height and must be full cutoff luminaries. Illustrates a 43-foot Class B buffer along the site's eastern property boundary where adjacent to N1A zoning. Commits to several transportation improvements, including access via right-in only driveway south of Bellmead Drive and a full movement driveway north of Bellmead Drive. A 12-foot multi-use path along Rhine Road. Conversion of the southbound off-ramp of I-485 at Moore's Chapel Road to a free-flow right turn lane by extending the right turn lane between the 2 roundabouts. Construction of, construction of an eastbound left turn lane on Bellmead Drive at Rhine Road with 150 feet of storage. Construction of a southbound left turn lane on Rhine Road at the northernmost driveway. And construction of a southbound right turn lane on Rhine Road at Moore's Chapel Road. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed several outstanding issues related to site and building design and transportation, including incorporating recommendations of the traffic impact study. There are a couple of outstanding transportation issues relating to a staff request to extend a multi-use path along Moore's Chapel Road. I understand the petitioner is agreeable to making that improvement. So staff does recommend approval upon those last outstanding items being corrected. Petition is split on consistency. The northern half of the site is consistent. The southern half is inconsistent. That is due to the drive-through use being inconsistent with neighborhood center place type. However, the site is in an automobile-oriented environment at the interchange of Interstate 45 and Moore's Chapel Road on the primary route to the U.S. National Whitewater Center. There are various transportation improvements, including a 12-foot multi-use path that will be along both the Rhine Road and Moore's Chapel Road frontage. Staff does recommend approval, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Do I see Commissioner Lansdale getting the microphone?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Lansdale. A couple of questions, Joe. The petitioner reached out. Just there's so many issues with this. It wasn't easy for me to talk about this and make suggestions for changes. But Jake or CDOT, be prepared as well. I've got some problems with the language, Joe. Here it says, go back to the slide you just had it. That one there. So you said the petition is a vehicle, or it just went away. Automobile oriented environment to the interchange. Well, I disagree completely with that. I myself, along with several hundred other riders, have ridden that over the weekend to get to Bellamede as a central non-vehicular route to the Whitewater Center. And my issues with this particular product at this particular location is that the space between the single lane roundabouts just cannot handle the amount of truck traffic that is a potential for this development. And certainly in my mind, we made mistakes at the previous development on Ryan Road at Bellamede as well. So it is stacking bad on top of bad at this point. So my apologies for the owners and operators of that facility. I would not have made those decisions if I were on the committee at that time. I do believe that Morris Chapel, Ryan Road, and this intersection was under-designed and underbuilt for the types of uses that this would allow for. I do not agree as access point to River District and other points to the west of Mecklenburg County, that this has to be forever an auto-centric roadway and use. There's going to be lots of opportunities there. Let's see. Specific on the design site, it's interesting that we have an 18-foot entryway on the first one at Bellamede. That turning radius for an 18-wheeler, having worked with CATS and made mistakes on East Boulevard about turning radiuses, having worked with zoning on issues associated with lack of design for the VA Center and turning radiuses, I'm just not going to be able to support this rezoning petition at this time. And I wish I had more of a depth of engineering and transportation. I certainly wish I was a better attorney and a better architect as well, but I'm none of the above. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next? Commissioner Russell?
I just have more of a comment to Commissioner Lansdale. While you downplay your design and attorney skills, I think you're a very skilled traffic engineer, so I would pay you that compliment. I would say this one is a bit of a conflict for me. Number one, I reflexively just don't like gas stations at all.
Twins.
I know. But I also am cognizant of where we are in development and in the economy, and then understanding the location is right off of an interchange of an interstate. It is a toss-up. And so I do need to dwell on this a little bit. I will say thank you to both the petitioner and to those who are opposed. Well, I can say that I do read all of your emails. I may not respond to them because of the number that I get, and I have a full-time job, but know that I do read and take your feedback very seriously on this matter. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilden, with your beautiful voice.
Thanks. I really should be on radio. So we had a gas station that is literally right next to this one. I think it's like within like a quarter of a mile or something, approved earlier this month by city council. The council member said, I think we could use one more right before they voted for it. So I'm just going to reiterate what I said in opposition for the last one, because maybe they'll listen this time. A high impact gas station use is not compatible with the adopted 2040 Charlotte Future Comprehensive Plan. A new massive fueling station use isn't what we look for when we think of 10-minute neighborhoods. Additionally, new underground gas storage has environmental harms and impacts that limit future development. It is the wrong choice for this neighborhood, especially with 4, about to be 5, gas stations within a 5-minute drive. Period.
You good?
Yep.
Does anyone else have anything? Commissioner Lansdale, am I seeing some more from you or not? I will.
A motion at the appropriate time.
Okay, I will chime in that I am okay with this particular thing. As Commissioner Russell said, yes, it's an autocentric use. It is next to an interstate. It is next to the airport. And it's next to 2 interstates, actually. Just a point of clarification, Terry, the Morse Chapel is a state maintained road?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just, so it's their fault it's designed the way it is, can we say that?
Well, You can say it's their fault, but it was designed before the amount of development that occurred. So when it was a country road with single-family homes, the design and engineering was appropriate.
Okay. Also note that on Rhine Road, we did approve 2 rezonings within the last year and a half. One was Piedmont Natural Gas, and the other was a Beacon property that we approved as well up there. Again, I believe that this is an appropriate use because of where it's located. I believe that both Hotelling's law is this wonderful thing that tells you where to put your ice cream stand on the beach. You guys know Hotelling's law? Hotelling's law. It says if you've got a mile-long strand of beach, where do you put your ice cream stands?
In my mouth?
Yeah. The ice cream stands end up being right next to each other in the middle because that helps both businesses. And I believe Hotelling's law will make the existing convenience store gas station near this site quite a bit of money. So I believe there's a benefit for this.
Sounds like you just created twice as much traffic.
No, because what it is in every town, there's a motor mile. Did you ever notice that? All the car dealerships gather in one place, right?
I try not to.
Yeah, well, we'll do hotels. If you ever notice, all the hotels end up in one place. These things cluster together, and it's because the cluster serves to be a greater magnet for the attraction of the service. And therein lies the deal. I'm going to, if anybody else has anything left, I think Commissioner Lansdale had his finger on something. So do I hear a motion for the disposition on this petition?
Commissioner Lansdale, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to deny this position, I will move to deny. Having reviewed the petition and considered this consistency statement, I move to deny this petition and recommend denial of petition number 2022-105 and to deny the adoption of the consistency statement. I guess I got that right. This is a very confusing one for me to.
Second, Seeley.
There we go. Thank you. I had Seeley's tongue tonight on that.
Moved by Lansdale and seconded by Seeley. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. We got 2. Is that 5? 5-2. That motion passes for denial. You all will need to craft a consistency statement for the denial.
Sure, I'm ready for that.
Okay, Del.
Who do I need to talk to, Joe? This petition does not accurately address or compensate in its land use request to lessen congestion on roadways, state and local, and negatively impacts the general welfare of the community as it does not adequately improve transportation access.
And then the All right, can we go on to item number 10 on our agenda tonight? What are we, like an hour and a half in and we've like the 3rd petition we've gotten to? And I thought we were going to get out of here at 7 o'clock.
I know, that's why you don't jinx it.
Item number 10 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-015 by Tribeca Properties. Holly, would you take us through this one, please?
Yes. Sorry, trying to pull back up my notes. So this site is 4.5 acres along Wilkson Boulevard and Remount Road. It's going to be bisected by the future Silver Line. if the current alignment path stays as it is. Site is currently zoned manufacturing logistics 2, and they are requesting to go to transit-oriented development neighborhood center conditional. The intent of that plan proceeding as conditional rather than conventional rezoning is just to reserve right of way for the future Silver Line and build in protections for the transit station frontage development as requested by CATS. This proposal is consistent with the Community Activity Center, which is adopted for the site. It would allow for all uses in the TOD NC district, and the portion of the site that's shown in gray there would be right away for the future Silver Line. If any portion of that reserved area is removed by CATS or by the MTC from the adopted transit plans, then the petitioner may seek to remove that reservation on the area through an administrative amendment to the rezoning if approved. Since the public hearing, the petitioner team has worked really closely with CATS to revise the conditional notes so that we could make sure we are effectively planning for the future Silver Line and building in protections for CATS to treat future development on the site as transit station frontage, assuming that the station alignment doesn't change. There are just some very minor technical revisions that remain, and the petitioner has already committed to addressing those in a revised plan that will be submitted later this week. So because we got to a point of comfortability with CATS, staff recommends approval of this petition, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Holly. I have a quick one before I get to everyone else. Is there a time frame on that notion of reserving that property for CATS? Because I know that the Silver Line is planned, but you know what I say, you know, your strategy is what your budget says, and right now their budget says 0 for constructing. So is that in perpetuity that particular piece is reserved?
Yeah, so it would stay as part of reservation area, but if it were ever removed from the alignment path, then it would not be a reserved area. But they did specify, I think, a time limit. I think it might say not quite in perpetuity, as if in case in case it never happens.
The Silver Line never happening? No way.
Yeah.
So it is tied to the Silver.
It's tied to it's tied specifically to the alignment path remaining as is. If that were to change in the reservation, if the alignment path no longer bisects the site, the reservation area would no longer be required of the site, but they would need to make sure they address that in an administrative amendment because that would be a change to their conditions.
But wouldn't they have to rezone because it would no longer have transportation, so therefore no longer be tied in?
No, because we can do it within I'm saying this, but my understanding is that if it's an approved alignment, we can rezone it as TOD. And it's an approved alignment right now, or at least the last time.
Yes, so you can do TOD NC and TOD TR if it's within that half mile of, the transit station alignment. You can't do TOD CC and TOD UC if it isn't a funded station. Because they are requesting TOD NC, that's why we can apply it to the Silver Line.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was asking like if the Silver Line goes away or doesn't happen, then can it maintain the TOD?
Yes.
With no TOD?
Well, I think they would technically, you'd have to look at an alignment rezoning if we were thinking about a situation where the Silver Line deviates very drastically. Now, it would have to move pretty far for this to then fall out of applicability for TOD.
Or not happen? I said it, not you.
Later problem that's not frankly ours. Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
So patty.
Oh.
Do I have any other comments or questions from the commission? Nope. If not, do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number 10 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-015?
Motion, Seeley, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2023-015 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it also redundantly appears before us.
Second, Wilden.
It's been moved by Seeley, seconded by Wilden. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Please note that Commissioner Lansdale we'll just pretend he's in the bathroom. Okay, Item number 11 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-033 by CRD Elizabeth LLC. And Holly, will you take us through this one as well?
Yeah, so this site is just over 1.5 acres along the northeastern side of 7th Street in between Clement and Lamar Avenues, located in the Elizabeth neighborhood along a corridor where we have a lot of commercial, office, and residential uses. It's currently zoned, oh, sorry, I did add in this slide since the public hearing, just for reference. I think it gives you a good view of the existing heights on the area and what they're entitled for. So the newer developments would be 2019 029, 2014 084, 084 having a maximum height of 52 feet, and 029 off of Caswell and 7th having a maximum height of 65 feet, though the actual building does not exceed 60 feet on that intersection with Caswell. And 2020-015 was entitled for 55 feet, and that house that is 2005-139, that was just a rezoning to allow for the adaptive reuse of the single-family home to the restaurant use that's now on the site. All right, we can. So the site is currently zoned general commercial, and they're proposing to go to mixed use development district optional. Just for reference, this site, sorry, could we go back? I'm sorry, Emma. This site could develop multifamily uses under the existing general commercial zoning if they really wanted to, because it is located in an activity center on the policy map. That was a text amendment that passed a while back. The maximum height in the CG district is 50 feet as a base, and it could go up to 65 feet if you seek bonus provisions such as affordable housing, minority women business inclusion targets, and more. The 2040 policy map calls for a neighborhood activity center at this site and along East 7th Street generally. The proposal is inconsistent with that adopted place type, which I'll talk about a little bit more in staff's recommendation. The proposal itself is for up to 213 residential units and up to 5,600 square feet of non-residential uses. And they commit to prohibiting uses that we wouldn't prefer, such as auto service stations and drive-throughs. There is one optional provision that would allow for parking maneuvering between buildings and the setback, and that's just for the one parking space provided off of Clement Avenue there. The minimum parking being provided is 1.1 space per one residential unit. The building would have a maximum height of 78 feet along East 7th Street. That steps down in height at the rear of the site where it's adjacent to single-family uses. An 8-foot playing strip and 8-foot sidewalk is proposed along all 3 frontages. They commit to upgrading rapid flashing beacon pedestrian crossing at Clement Avenue and East 7th Street, or providing an upgraded pedestrian crossing at Lamar Avenue and East 7th Street. They provide bicycle parking within 50 feet of the entry of each commercial occupancy. And they also provide architectural standards related to preferred building materials, screening, building massing and height, pedestrian-oriented building placement, transparency requirements, and others. There's a commitment to a 20-foot rear yard along the site with plantings to provide screening for those adjacent single-family uses. An 8-foot masonry wall would also be provided along the rear of the site. They provide screening details for the parking deck, most of which will be located below grade, or that is the intention. Commits to freestanding lighting fixtures no more than 21 feet in height. Since the public hearing, we've had a couple of changes. They added a commitment to the minimum amount of square footage for non-residential uses, which is something we requested. So there's now a minimum of 4,000 square feet of those uses that would be provided, still having that maximum of 5,600 square feet. And they also specify that the building height step down would be so that it's 45 feet at a maximum at the rear of the site. And that 45-foot zone essentially extends 80 feet into the site as measured from the property line at the rear. Staff does not recommend approval of this petition in its current form. The proposal is inconsistent with our adopted neighborhood activity center place type for this site. The Elizabeth area is defined by low to mid-rise structures along pedestrian corridors where mixed use and denser developments are intentionally transitioned to the adjacent single-family neighborhoods with moderate height limitations and the adaptive reuse of single-family structures. This proposal would entitle the site to a scale of development that is incompatible with that adopted place type and the existing buildings in the area, as I was showing you on the second bird's eye image. Buildings that align with the neighborhood activity center place type would not have a base height exceeding 65 feet. And at a maximum, the neighborhood center zoning district, which is obviously compatible with that place type, would not allow for more than 80 feet, and that's with the use of bonus menu provisions for any height that's achieved above 65 feet. However, I'll note that even if this site were to hypothetically pursue neighborhood center zoning, you would be limited to 65 feet for the vast majority of the site because it falls within 200 feet of the neighborhood 1 place type, except for about 5 feet, give or take. That's not an accurate survey measurement, but 5 feet along East 7th Street that falls out of that 200-foot boundary.
200 feet from the single family.
Measured from neighborhood 1 property lines.
It's 200 feet.
65 feet within 200 feet and 50 feet when it's within 100 feet of neighborhood 1 property lines. So in its current form, the 78-foot tall building proposed is incongruent with the intent of that neighborhood activity center place type to be mindful of adjacent uses. And the proposal also does not assimilate to the long-established character and newer developments that we're seeing in Elizabeth. We have requested that the petitioner decrease the maximum height proposed to no more than 65 feet, which would bring the plan closer in alignment with our UDO districts. And to clarify, all of those UDO districts that they could seek, like CG and NC, would have the same height plane restrictions in proximity to neighborhood 1 parcels. So 50 feet within 100 feet of neighborhood 1 and 65 within 200 feet. And we strongly believe that those height plane restrictions should be worked into this proposal. The adoption of the proposal as is would modify the adopted place type to community activity center because of the scale of the development that they're proposing. Such a small application of a denser, more urban place type would be inappropriate here and does not meet our criteria for supporting a place type change. And we use an internal policy that was created with long-range planning. Through the initial policy map drafting process and also through our community area planning processes that took place recently, staff has worked with neighbors to assess the appropriate place type for this corridor and how it transitions to the adjacent place type and uses. Neighborhood Activity Center was identified in the initial policy map drafting, and it was reaffirmed in the community area planning process as the preferred place type along East 7th Street. And there's no intention to change that to Community Activity Center. The Neighborhood Activity Center encourages walkable mixed-use areas that are embedded directly into neighborhoods like 7th Street is embedded into Elizabeth. And as already mentioned, building forms supported in this place type should typically be low mid-rise structures upwards of 65 feet. Community Activity Center, which this petition would change the site to on the policy map, is intended for the denser, more urban areas where we want to see mid to high-rise structures along transit corridors and major roadways. And that does not match our vision for 7th Street nor the existing condition. So we expect densification to occur in this neighborhood. We're not opposed to that. That's why we've designated most of the area as Neighborhood Activity Center, which would allow for just that. But we believe that developments must be cognizant of the existing neighborhood character. And the uses proposed in this plan are consistent with Neighborhood Activity Center, but we want to see the site and the building actually conform with our adopted policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. You had quite a bit to say there that time. Just saying. I've got a couple of pieces of business and then I've got Commissioner Winokur. I will just note that, did everybody get some emails over the last few days? Okay, I will just say that we have received, folks, and we thank everybody for their participation by sending us an email. I also received a copy of signatures on a petition. I've got 150 of them here if anybody wants to take a peek at this. And those are from some of the neighbors who are requesting changes to this petition. I will also note that during the public hearing, both the Elizabeth, Community ECA and their land use committee both gave strong testimony supporting this petition. And therein I am, and I think I've covered it. And now Commissioner Winokur, it's all yours, baby.
Holly, could you pull up the site plan, the schematics that the developer, that the ECA had approved? Do you have that available to you? The
elevation.
The elevation.
Well, the building, not the aerial view, the front view.
Elevation renderings.
Right, the rendering. Thank you, the rendering.
Sorry. We don't have those directly on hand on the PowerPoint, but I can describe them as needed.
I understand. Holly, can you then instead pull up kind of the two-dimensional map view of this lot, slightly pulled out? You had that
Where's
lovely.
that image?
Hmm?
If you,
Yeah, do you have another one that has more of a map view? Is that it?
top down? Or
That's
that-
it?
Maybe go to the next one.
Do you have anything? Yeah,
I think could probably be.
yeah, it's probably the closest one. Thank you. And just to the south of it is, obviously right across the street is the, where I go to shelter in place for hurricanes is the Cajun Queen, and those small, redone offices that are right across the street, lovely spots, and my favorite veterinarian. And then immediately south of that is Independence Park, Charlotte's first park, recently redeveloped with $12 million of Mecklenburg County's money to a very lovely, gracious space. Am I right? And then just south of that is the massive sprawling and potentially will increase its footprint, the Novant complex. Right? They're going to be slowly increasing their spread in the whole area as medical campuses continue to exist. But I guess this is more my commentary now than questions for Holly. But if you can leave it on this view. But then immediately west of it is the Gold Line, about $1 billion worth of transportation infrastructure. To the north of this site is Independence Boulevard, an impenetrable barrier, only accessible through Hawthorne and Pecan in the area. And then otherwise you have extremely low density, single family housing all around. A number of comments that have been made to me by members of not only the Elizabeth community, the board members who reviewed this and worked with the developer for 18 months, but also other neighborhood advocates and folks who have been very much involved in neighborhood planning in nearby areas, including the Plaza Midwood Commonwealth development that we're seeing massive developments. I will, out of my backyard, I'm going to see a 10-story Levine building where I don't see a 10-story Levine building now. Things will change. But only so much is going to end up changing in this sweet little section of Elizabeth. But one thing that is important to realize is the math and the numbers, that we need density to be able to support businesses. One argument that Stanley Drugs became the Dollar General is when Independence Boulevard then cut off access to a lot of neighbors to the north. But we also have we have just sort of, aging in place, single family homes that support the economy in the area. Meanwhile, we have an incredible transportation infrastructure opportunity. And if we're talking about these 200 new residents to the area, it would bring a real jolt and a much needed energy to sustain what we hope will be a beautiful, gracious, economic and residential area, a place to live, work, and play. Some other comments about what the petitioner has done in terms of meeting with the neighbors and talking with them for the past 18 months. That's true, though, Holly. Okay. They are going to do a parking, underground parking. They provided for a parking space for one of the neighbors that would be right next to this development that was concerned about losing a parking space. The parking requirements exceeding the UDO minimums. Continuous 8-foot masonry wall along the northern property line, which separates property from 8th Street Alley, the landscape berm and taller plantings behind the privacy wall. They very specifically agreed to a number of changes, a number of modifications over time to try to create a frontage that is not a stark, different transition, but one that instead blends into the surrounding neighborhood. But what we are talking about in saying neighborhood activity center only, and it can only and will never be anything else, is only neighborhood activity center is what the city is saying. And by trying to keep the petitioner from, once again, doing the math and being able to create a beautiful development that that was vetted by some of the toughest land use neighbors this side of Dilworth, is something to be said. So long story short, I guess what I'm saying is I support this development, and I think that it's worthy of consideration.
Thank you, sir. I think that Evan and Elizabeth could take Ellen in Dilworth. Just saying.
Steel cage math.
Steel cage math. Do I have a comment, questions? I've got Lansdale.
Yeah, I appreciate the commentary. As if you wouldn't mind pulling up any of the schematics is fine with a site triangle listed. Yeah, great. So what I needed to look at, and I think, and just a confirmation that there was a 200-foot buffer between N1. Is that right, Holly? You would confirm that for me?
Are you talking about the height plan restrictions?
Mhm.
Yeah, so as listed under UDO districts, your building height would be limited to 65 feet when it's within 200 feet of an N1 property line, or 50 feet when it's within 100 feet of an N1 property line.
Great. So what I want to talk about tonight is transportation. So we've got great site triangles on the corners of the buildings on 7th Street and Lamar, and 7th Street and Clement, and this might be NCDOT. But when we look at now, we really wish we had the renderings, because that was the shocking piece that for transportation issues. All service and activity for this building is going to be done on Lamar Avenue. My estimations are 110 feet away from the 7th Street intersection of Lamar. Without site triangles indicated in the design specs for this particular building, without compensation for access for that 8-foot sidewalk that cars will have to stage in, 213 units accessing one site without a site triangle, ingress and egress on Lamar. So as great as the building is, the Achilles heel for me on this one, and a vote no for me, is because of the transportation issues not resolved to support transportation mitigation for this type of zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lansdale. Do we have comments from anybody else? Hey, I'll have some comments. Obviously, again, we got several emails, and I want folks to know that we do take your comments seriously. Taking a look at this particular petition, I did find that the petitioner worked extensively with the Land Use Committee and the board to get to a place where they were creating a great product for this neighborhood. And I do believe this neighborhood is unique in the need for this type of product. The design I looked at, and I have to applaud because of the setbacks and the massing of the buildings, I appreciate that, and it doesn't all look like an 85-foot tall building, which I think they could have just put a big rectangular cube. What do you call that shape? Lump?
Rhombus?
Or it's not a rhombus. It's a cube-esque kind of thing there, and they wouldn't have had the setbacks from a prison. Yeah. One of my things is I will agree with Commissioner Winokur that we need density in order to support our neighborhood centers and our inner communities as well. Where do we put that density if we're going to put a lot of people there? If we are not going to take advantage of the fact that we have spent a lot of money on the Gold Line, which is what it is. And we spent a lot of money on the Hawthorne Bridge, which I think everybody is excited about. We paid for it 2 or 3 times. You know, we've got a bike lanes into town. It's right near the Cross Charlotte Trail. The CATS line number 27 runs down the street. It is right across from Independence Park. It is a couple of 100 feet away from Hawthorne Pizza, or if you go the other way, the Crunkleton and Bang Bang Burger, et cetera, et cetera. It is very near the world headquarters for Winokur at Law.
Winokur Law Firm, yeah.
Yes, that is perhaps the exciting part about this. But we need to place our density in places like this. And I'm one that believes that I will take the trade-off of putting density here as opposed to losing a little bit to save 13 feet of elevation. When I took a look at the elevation for the street, the project that's at the corner of Pecan and 7th, the topo map says that corner is at 738 feet above sea level. The project Lamar, that is the lowest place for an elevation for this particular project is 704 feet. I think that in terms of scope of looking down 7th, more than compensates for the difference in perspective there. And again, I believe that this is the good project to put there. I have one question for you, Holly. I know that community area planning, because I was in several of those meetings talking about the neighborhood activity center remaining there, but they also talked about changes to the campus place type around the hospital. And some of those were going to, I think the suggestion was some of those were going to transition. I don't remember the totality of that conversation, but I think I remember the intent was that there were some areas that were around the hospital that were declared campus now that needed to be something other than campus. And there is community activity center there on Elizabeth, if I remember correctly.
So the draft revised policy map does call for some changes adjacent to the campus, but it's to neighborhood activity center, which reaffirms what we would like to see along 7th and near 7th is neighborhood activity center. As you transition from community activity center and campus to the south and to the west, you transition to a slightly lower or less intense place type in neighborhood activity center. So that's what I see in the draft revised policy map in terms of changes around campus.
I thought they were making those changes on 3rd. That was the place where those were suggested.
I'm seeing more changes to neighborhood activity center along 3rd.
3rd, yeah. Again, my opinion is that we can make some trade-offs, and I believe that it's valid for us to create a more dense community here, and that's a valid trade-off for having more intensity.
And I do just want to note real quick, because the alignment rezoning process is part of this conversation. Obviously, a lot of these parcels are zone CG. In the alignment rezoning process, we would look to take those to neighborhood center zoning district, which again, it does allow for densification and intensification versus over what is existing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I smile when you say alignment rezoning because not like the silver line, but the alignment rezoning, it's going to be a minute.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to just add.
We've got Commissioner Seeley wants to throw something in here.
I just want to add something really quickly because I got to skedaddle. But at 65 feet, your parking deck goes above ground. The back half of this property gets probably taller. Everything becomes a little bit bigger and has a little bit more massing. You have a bigger project, more massive project by going the route of making it shorter. Because of the way that this is massed on 7th Street, it is a better product than what you will get at the base level of zoning. Yeah. And in my opinion, this should be TOD because we are a block from a transit line. And quite frankly, all of the things that Welton mentioned add to the accessibility of this site, and this is where density belongs. Absolutely where it belongs. So, I mean, I'm going to support this because it's a great looking project and is a great model for one-on-one conversations between developments and neighborhoods.
I just wanted to add real quick, having worked at CPCC for a couple of years doing some projects, I spent a lot of time walking down East 7th Street. So, I'm very intimate with how this works. I know there are a lot of concerns about traffic because you're going to introduce 213 new residents. But I can tell you, as somebody who's walked from CPCC all the way down to Showmars on 7th Street, that having that building that close to a light rail line, that close to retail where you can go out and get something to eat or, go to the drugstore, that you're not going to see as much traffic because those people are going to walk. And the only traffic you're going to get is really when people are leaving the immediate area. If I'm going to a concert or if I'm going uptown to a Panthers game, I can ride the trolley. If I wanted to just grab something to eat, yeah, you could walk. I mean, you're less than a mile from uptown, which is quite possibly the densest place in Charlotte. So while I understand, even in the suburban part of where I live, in Charlotte, I've got people walking across an interstate to get to things like a movie theater and engaging in the community. And this is a lot closer, a lot safer, and a lot more pleasant walk. So while I understand the emails and the concerns about traffic, I just don't think they're founded based on the density, based on the comments from Commissioners Weldon and Seeley, and I plan on supporting it.
Do we have any other comments? If not, do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number 11 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-033?
Wilden, motion to approve. This petition is found to be inconsistent with the 2040 policy map based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing. And because do I have to read this whole
You
thing?
need to make a new consistency.
We're going to have to make a new consistency statement.
I will. However, we find this petition to be reasonable in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because hand it to Rick. He knew I was going to do that.
The extensive measures that this particular petitioner has done to integrate a unit, though marginally inconsistent with the neighborhood center plan, is nevertheless consistent with the specific location in this particular circumstance.
Do I have a second for that?
Second, Seeley.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wilden, seconded by Commissioner Seeley. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed is Lansdale. And do you want to, Holly, do you have a consistency statement for 4 from Rick, or you need more?
So we have staff's consistency statement, but if you would like to adopt your own because it's specific to transportation, then you could make your own minority consistency statement or adopt staff's.
Show me staffs again then. Oh, mine. I've got to add to that. So I'll make the motion to adopt the staff's consistency statement along with the other comments associated with the lack of safe design for the parking access on Lamar Avenue, the lack of sight triangles associated with that design, and the limited 8-foot sidewalk associated with the conflict point for the ingress and egress for the building. Hopefully those can be changed by the petitioner before it comes to council.
All right, you good, Holly? All right, we're on to item number 12 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-042 by Wilmore Preservation LLC. Joe Mangum, would you please take us through this one?
Will do. 2023-042 is approximately 3.23 acres located on the northeastern corner of the intersection of West Boulevard and Mint Street, the Wilmore community. Current zoning is N1D. It's been the historic district overlay. Proposed zoning is MUDO, HDO. 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 place type. Proposal is to redevelop the site of the Wilmore School, including adaptive reuse of the existing school building for up to 250 multifamily and/or single-family attached residential units, as well as 3,500 square feet of retail EDEE personal service uses, and 4,300 square feet of office, community recreation centers, museums, theaters, galleries, and other similar indoor community facilities. The following uses would be prohibited: adult establishments, automotive service stations, building materials sales, bus passenger stations, children's homes, telecommunications and data storage facilities, utility and related facilities, and warehousing within an enclosed building for self-storage. It will allow for conversion of multifamily residential units at a ratio of 1 residential unit per 1,000 square feet of office uses up to a maximum of 190,000 square feet. The following optional provisions are requested: to allow the existing Wilmore School building to remain and to be renovated without being brought into full compliance with MUD design standards, to allow existing off-street parking and maneuvering areas between the Wilmore School building and public streets to remain, and to allow existing parking infrastructure to function in the current location. Building height would be limited to 65 feet with a transition down to 55 feet along Mint Street and 37 feet along West Kingston Street. It's committing to negotiating building materials and massing with the HDC and HLC. Vinyl siding and concrete masonry would be prohibited as exterior building materials. A 10-foot Class C buffer with fence would be provided along the eastern property boundary. Access would be from West Boulevard, Mint Street, and Kingston Avenue. Petitioner is committing to providing a 12-foot multi-use path along West Boulevard, as well as an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along both Mint Street and Kingston Avenue. And also we'll be installing APS push buttons and pedestrian ramp upgrades at the existing traffic signal at West Boulevard and Mint Streets. Since the public hearing, the petitioner has addressed several outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design, as well as made a commitment to designated 5% of the total number of multifamily dwelling units constructed to be permanently affordable housing available to tenants earning no more than 80% area median income. There are still a couple of small discrepancies in measuring between the rezoning plan and the HDC approved plan. Also, Housing and Neighborhood Services has requested a little bit more robust of a note for the affordable housing. I understand the petitioner is agreeable to those changes and will be following up with the revised plan following zoning committee. Petition is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for neighborhood 1 place type. However, staff is in support based on the efforts to preserve the historic Wilmore School building, while also allowing for additional development on the site. The adaptive reuse of the building has been approved by the Historic Districts Commission, and the renovation will occur in coordination with HDC and HLC. Site's also within a half mile of the Blue Line East-West station. It will revise the recommended place type from neighborhood 1 to neighborhood 2. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. Do I have any questions, comments? Commissioner Russell?
Yeah, just a comment. I think this is a fabulous project, mainly because you're doing some adaptive reuse, and that's just something that we don't do well in Charlotte. We're very good at just kind of bulldozing stuff and putting up something new and shiny. And I think it's nice to kind of keep some of that word character and use an existing building that's already part of the community to add housing in a more gentle way than we've seen in some other places in Charlotte. So with that, I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Do I have anybody else got a comment on this one? If not, do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number, whichever one this is, 12, I think, on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2023-042.
Russell, to recommend to approve, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2023-042 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Second,
That one has been moved by Commissioner Russell, seconded by Commissioner Neely. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Please note, Commissioner Seeley is no longer with us for the evening. And he probably has like some ugly thing on his neck or something. Whatever, never mind. We are up to item number 13 on our agenda, rezoning petition number 2024-004 by the Drox Group LLC. Notice that that was a 2024, people. We're actually getting into the current year. We're excited. Joe, can you plug yourself in there and we can rock and roll? Is that the right plug? Let's hope.
Just got it.
All right, give it to us.
2024-004 is just over 4 acres located on the east side of South Tryon Street, west of Nations Ford Road and north of Queen Anne Road. Current zoning is N1B. Proposed zoning is N2A-CD. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 place type. Proposal would allow for a community of up to 50 multifamily attached residential dwellings in buildings containing either 2 or 3 units. Commits to a 15-foot Class C landscape yard with fence along the property boundaries. Provides an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along the site's South Tryon Street frontage. Will limit building height to 48 feet. Commits to constructing usable front porches or stoops for all units. Also commits to providing recessed garage doors, transparency, and/or enhanced hardware treatments. Since the public hearing, the petitioner addressed 2 outstanding issues related to transportation. There are no more outstanding issues. Staff recommends approval. It is inconsistent with the N1 place type recommendation. However, would diversify housing options in this segment of South Tryon Street, as well as improve multimodal mobility through the 12-foot multi-use path. The petitioner is committing to screening above ordinance requirements with that 15-foot Class C landscape yard. And be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. Do we have anyone have any questions? Commissioner Wilden.
This might be a silly question, but one of the bullet points says commits to providing recessed garage doors, transparency, and/or enhanced hardware treatments. What are enhanced hardware treatments? Because Google didn't tell me anything. I know that that sounds like a silly question, but I like legitimately don't understand
I
what
think
that is.
that means fancy.
Oh my God. Okay. No,
I am not a,
take that, strike that from the record. Never mind.
we don't have any of our urban design folks on the call, but
Yeah,
above average.
they sold all of those at Bed Bath and Beyond, so let's go with that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number 32? Did you have, you're good? All right, you guys?
All right, Commissioner Russell, motion to approve, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition. I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2024-004 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
It's been moved by Commissioner Russell and seconded by Commissioner Neely. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. We are on to our last petition of the night. And that is rezoning, item number 14, rezoning petition 2024-005 by Portman Residential LLC. Emma, we have not heard from you all night long, and we are excited to hear from you now.
Save the best for last. I understand.
Oh,
2024-005 is approximately 1.21 acres located on the west side of Chamberlain Avenue, north of State Street and north of Yellowstone Drive. The current zoning is ML2 Manufacturing and Logistics. The proposed zoning is IMU Innovation Mixed Use. The 2040 policy map calls for innovation mixed use. This is a conventional petition. Staff does recommend approval, and the petition is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation. I will take any questions the committee might have.
thank you, Emma, for that very quick, brief summary. Anybody got any questions, issues, comments on item number 14 on our agenda? If not, do I hear a motion for the disposition of item number 14, rezoning petition 2024-005?
Wilden, motion to approve. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of 2024-005 as it appears before us.
Second, Neely.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wilden and seconded by Commissioner Neely. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. As they say in here in the South, I think we're done. Stick a fork in us. Do I have a motion for us to adjourn tonight? So moved, and we are out of here, folks. Thank you, everybody.